This
you
makes me nervous.
I
Like,
just pick a
sweating.
number.
I'm sweating.
Yeah.
Um,
Jared's the one that said he was stressed.
when are we testing? I get time to train.
In the next month. I mean, the holidays are crazy. We're traveling. Things at the gym are nuts. So it's
Okay,
just
I'm gonna say 40.
So my 39 isn't like crazy off.
Jared, you're
I
like
think-
40 years
marathons.
younger than me.
Did 3
Yeah.
marathons though, and like
you're literally half my age. Welcome to the enduraLAB podcast, where we explore the science, strategy, and stories behind living a healthier, stronger, and longer life. I'm Lee, the owner and head coach here at enduraLAB, and joining me today, as always, are my favorite co-hosts and coaches.
Hey.
What up?
What's going on, guys? How we doing, Isis?
Man, my heart rate is literally maxed out in anticipation for this episode.
Oh, yeah. And you, Jared?
well, unlike ISIS, I'm stressing about this VO2.
Kind of like people when we talk about VO2, right?
Yeah.
Now, before we dive into VO2 max, you guys got any interesting gym stories this week?
Saw people do some muscle ups, attempt some muscle ups, so it's cool to see them try something that's that difficult.
So Jared had to coach a lot of classes that day, and bless his heart, he was doing probably like 40 muscle ups per hour. He's like,
Yeah,
no, you gotta do it like this. He like tore the inside part of his hand a little
I
bit.
can should I show the camera?
Yeah, show the camera.
Yeah, show
I
the
tore
camera.
on my thumb, like the weird
Yowzers.
spot. No one's ever torn there before. So
The
I've done
day
that on
after.
like power cleans, with knurling, but
The day after, Jared's like, I'm so sore. And then Kiki comes in to work out, and they work out together. She's like, I want to try a muscle up. Can you show me how? And bless Jared's heart. He's like, yeah.
it's always
Fine.
funny,
I'll
like
go
those
over
high
it.
skill movements. Like it's fun to coach when you have them, except that everybody wants to see it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's hard to put it into words. I think I heard you at one point go, let me just show you.
Yeah,
and I'm like
yeah.
a visual person too. So like, even if you told me, I'd be like, nope, I got to see.
Like, just watch. I'll try to break it down 3 steps. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. Right.
Jared makes it look effortless.
He does.
He really does.
Yeah.
He goes
I mean,
up
that
and
is
over.
that is definitely an ego lift. Like that's a flex move when you're coaching there, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, mine's just a deadlift. Lifting heavy shit off the floor.
That's
but
right.
he's lifting himself over the bar. I mean, it's very impressive.
How about you, Isis? Any good gym stories?
Oh man, that was my good one. Thanks, Jared. Yeah, Lee, what about you?
I mean, I'm always fascinated by my longevity crew, and there's always little things that happen every week that are, celebration worthy. And so this week we had one of my clients who really came in with really bad shoulders. She's an OBGYN, delivers a lot of babies. So just the position that she's in every day, her right shoulder is very immobile, and there was a lot of pain. But anyway, we've been working on dead hangs, which, I mean, we had someone dead hang for over 2 minutes the other day, which is always
So
impressive. Anyway, she's been doing modified dead hangs, so changing the angle on the rings, getting into a position of maybe going overhead, and she got her first overhead dead hang today from a bar, so that was huge.
Okay,
Awesome.
same person. When I coached her this week, we were doing floor presses, and she picked a weight initially, and then after that first round, she's like, I can go heavier. And I was so happy about that, because then she also made another client go heavier. And that's just to show like these strong women who are thinking like, oh, like I'm here at maybe the 20-pound dumbbell range, and it's like, no, I can go up to 25, and then up to 30 is next. It's like,
It's shifting the
it
mindset of
is.
what's important, and being in a group and seeing other people actually push and understand, oh, that's okay, she's doing it too. Kind of gives everybody the green flag.
right.
push
And
a
it
little
was
harder.
just fun because too, like a lot of people can be like stagnant in their progress and just be like, oh,
Lift
these
the
are,
same weights
Yeah.
over and over again
and
every
having
day.
the confidence to be like, no, I can do more, and actually vocalize it. Oh, it was great. I was running for those heavier weights. It was really awesome.
All right, so let's talk about today's topic. We're all about VO2 max today. So why it matters for health and longevity, how we measure it here at enduraLAB with our awesome PNOE system, Plus, we're going to talk about how you can improve your VO2 max to perform better and actually live longer. So let's start with the basics, right? People often use the term VO2 max, but what is it? So, breaking it down, V is for volume, O2 is oxygen. So it is the maximum oxygen you can basically utilize to function. So,
And it's measured in milliliters per kilogram
correct, per minute.
per minute. Yep.
So, like when we talk about VO2 max, your abilities or your body's ability to use oxygen or utilize oxygen. So, when we think about that, you're going to take oxygen in, your lungs are going to absorb that oxygen. They're going to send that oxygen via blood to organs and muscles. And part of the biggest energy source for our muscles is ATP, and oxygen plays a huge role in that. So does creatine. So I just want everybody to kind of understand the role of oxygen into performance. So we're looking at taking it in, our lungs processing it, sending it to our muscles, and then our muscles use that to function. So it's important to know what's going on so that when we talk about how to improve it, people understand that it goes together.
Right. And you want max volume. Like you want as much as you can.
Yeah. VO2 max is a number that we should always be striving to improve. It is a measure of cardiovascular health and just basically aerobic health. Think of it like your engine size, right? So the bigger engines can do more work, and that translates to better endurance and performance.
Yeah, and kind of talking to that, if you think about someone who might have a large engine, you're thinking like ultra runners, champion cyclists. And so I actually pulled up some numbers. So an ultra runner, Kilian Jornet, I could be messing up the names,
that's him.
had a 96.
I can't remember. He ran up Everest.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. This guy is crazy. He's over in Europe and he's running in the mountains. I think his family was born and I don't know, raised in the mountains, and his whole family is,
and
of
it's
course,
like
ultra
VO2,
runners.
we'll get into it later, can be a genetic thing. So he could
Yeah.
have the genes too.
It definitely depends on genetics, right? Gender, so male, female, elevation, so where you're at, age, and then just overall health, right? Fitness.
The other person was Bjorn Daly. Bjorn.
I'm guessing.
Bjorn. Oh my
Bjorn.
gosh.
Bjorn.
Cross country skier, 96 as well. And then I think we looked up Lance Armstrong, who was in the high 80s or mid 80s during his peak. And
Now,
these
those
are
are
huge.
Crazy numbers.
Those are huge numbers. Yeah. The majority of us are going to be in the normal, like 40s, 50s
Probably
range. Hopefully.
see some people in the 30s for sure.
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, we want to improve that. But it's not just for elite Felicia. Elite athletes.
Good save.
No, it's a marker of overall health. So when you look at longevity, and we encourage athletes to get their VO2 measured or at least track it somehow, because a higher VO2 levels are associated with lower risks of chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes, and definitely linked to longer lifespans. And not just years of life, but life in those years, so healthier years.
It is a baseline. It's kind of like we want to equivalent it to blood work. Like when you go and get a checkup, you want to know these numbers because, again, it helps you in the long run live happier and healthier.
Yeah, if you could look at two numbers for longer, healthier life, you're going to look at VO2 max, and you're going to look at muscle mass and quality, right? So how much, how strong are you? Those two, and we heard it last week with Dr. Kathy, are more important than most other markers. There's nothing that you can really do or a better intervention than improving VO2 and muscle quality, which is crazy. So all the medications and all the supplements and all the nutrition and all the recovery tools that you have, you could just work out and actually live better.
So if we were to make this into like a sexy commercial as to what can high VO2 help you to do, like what are some fun things? Like
I feel like we
Yeah.
just show a happy family in their yard, playing ball.
Yeah.
Dad's smiling, mom is just, smiling too. Kids are running around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah, the ultimate, yeah. And then they're aging in life and they're still hanging out with their grandkids and they're being active and
Climbing stairs, carrying in the groceries,
yeah, quality of life, right?
I mean, I think we really take that for granted. The fact that we can walk around and
It's just normal to us.
do everyday tasks, but that's something that definitely can go away in an instant.
Yeah, I mean, VO2 is basically how efficiently your body can handle stress, right? We often think of stress as just kind of work stress or when we're working out, physical stress. And a higher VO2 means that your heart, lungs, muscles, they work in sync and deliver oxygen when it's needed. And that efficiency translates to better energy levels, improved recovery, and even resilience against illness, which is awesome.
It's also one of those things that you don't really know what it is. Like when people come to me with nutrition and they're like, oh, my metabolism is shot. I'm like, how do you know? Like, do you see that inside of you? Which we do have a test for that, RMR. But same here. It's like people don't know if they're good or bad. You could live a certain way for a long time and be comfortable in that way of life and realizing that your VO2 is low and you could have improved that.
Right. And like we've talked about before, it's so much simpler to start now. Do the
Absolutely.
little things. It's not like we're asking you to guys, everyone to be an elite endurance athlete. And I think that people often think about, well, I don't run or I don't cycle anymore. I don't need a VO2 max or, I'm older now. Why is that important? But it's never too late to start.
Right. Again, for those longevity reasons. And going to like an athlete, if you are an endurance athlete, I mean, we can really get some cool metrics and really dial in your training. And we can talk about that later. But
Absolutely.
you do find out your zones, like your heart rate per zone. And it's just,
I mean, even talking about what kind of fuel you're burning and how
Right.
efficiently you're burning and how efficiently your breathing is. The test definitely shows some cool stuff.
and even like the hit training where it's like you have to get in the zone or whatever. And a lot of people aren't even hitting that because they don't even know what their high zones are. And
Well, yeah.
I
And
mean-
I could go all day on
I just opened the
the
can of worms.
BS of high intensity interval training and certain gyms I'm going to just call it out, Orange Theory, that say, oh, yeah, we're all about high intensity.
Like,
Yeah, high intensity
Orange
training.
Theory.
Orange Theory. Right? Like the fact that they market high intensity interval training and it's not. And I know some people are going to be upset about me saying that, but real high intensity interval training, you better watch out because most people are not even capable of doing it because they're not capable of, number one, getting their heart rate that high, and then number two, repeating it because you have to be strong. There's actually like prerequisites before we would send people into true high intensity interval training or sprint interval training, which I like to use even more, especially when it talks to like longevity, female clients, like that's even more important. But if you're not ready, then we have to get you ready. And we'll talk about that kind of in how we train VO2. But know that sometimes when you talk to me about high intensity interval training, I'm going to look at you and be like, well, let me see your heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see what you really did. And then we're going to talk about if that really even fits into a high interval training protocol or if that's just some kind of glorified thing that someone's going to talk to you about. Oh, that burns more calories, which is all kind of BS.
And just, we kind of talked about this on another episode with the continuous glucose monitor, but like, if you don't know what your heart rate is because you're not wearing a watch or a heart rate monitor, I highly suggest you dabble in getting to know your heart rate. So
Yeah.
wearing a watch, because like standing there trying to check your own heart rate or whatever.
And counting at the
Again,
same time.
You would never know. You don't know what zone or what your body is doing. So you do need some data measurements for this.
Yeah, and I would say the simplest and probably the most accurate thing that you can get is a chest strap. So Polar chest strap, Garmin chest strap. There's a new one out there called Morpheus. Any of those are going to give you the most accurate data. If you want to wear it on your wrist, that's great. There are studies out there that show that a chest strap is the best. It's cheaper. So if you're just dabbling into this, grab a chest strap. If you have a wearable, like a watch, like a Garmin or an Apple Watch, and it syncs up with the chest strap, like if you really want to get into heart rate, get a chest strap.
Now, the chest strap connects to your phone. Is that how you get the data?
Yeah, I mean, so if you just have a chest strap, it would be to your phone, right? So Morpheus, they have an app. Polar has an app. But like Garmin, my Garmin chest strap syncs to my watch. So if I want to use my chest strap, I put it on, and then I'm going to say, hey, watch, use my chest strap data, not my optical sensor on my back
Hey,
of my watch.
That's very Hey Siri of you.
Yeah.
I believe, too, you can also sync your chest strap to your bike erg. I've seen some people do like 30 minutes of cardio trying to hit a certain heart rate, and the heart rate is on the monitor on the bike or the rower. So I thought that was really
The
cool.
treadmills too. Well, I've seen the treadmills.
Well, kind of a lot of cardio machines will do that. Concept 2 is awesome. That's the main brand we use at the gym because they are just rock solid. And yeah, if you have a Bluetooth chest strap, it will sync to the performance monitor there.
That's got to help a lot because if you're rowing, you can't check your phone or check your watch. Your hands are kind of stuck in the same position.
And they've also put the new little stands, that you can put your iPad or phone in if you had to. Yeah.
I like that.
All right. So now that we've kind of talked about in simple terms what VO2 is and why it's important, let's talk about the testing process and how we measure VO2 max here at enduraLAB. And Jarod is the man with that test, Jarod.
Yeah.
So let's talk about just kind of what the system is that we use.
So we use the PNOE system, and it is basically just a metabolic analyzer. So what it will
And it's wearable, right?
Yes. It's wearable in a mask form. So while we're doing the test, the mask is going to measure the levels of oxygen you're outputting, and then it'll use that to give you all this really good data.
Right, because we know that mask, so the mask is very sensitive. So like if you go into another lab, a lot of times it's a whole separate machine and you're wired to that, usually like electrodes, and you have the mask and you're on a treadmill or bike, right? Our system is cool because it's wearable. So
backpack, like you put it on like a backpack.
You can do a lot more things in it. You could even go out and train with it if you really wanted to. But the cool thing is, no matter what, we have a chest strap. So we're measuring the heart rate through that. And then as you're breathing in, we know the amount of oxygen that you're breathing in because we calibrate it. And then it's measuring how much oxygen you're breathing out and getting an estimate of how efficient you are at using that oxygen.
Your carbon dioxide output.
Yeah. So when an athlete comes into enduraLAB, number one, they're usually nervous about the test, right, Jarod?
Yeah.
So let's talk
Take
about
us through, like a client coming in
from start to finish.
So first thing with the VO2 test is the athlete will come in. We're gonna have them set up an account with our PNOE system. During that process, there's a questionnaire that they'll fill out. That's just body weight, what's your goal with your training, and kind of just where do you want to see yourself, what are you looking to improve. Once they set up their account, we'll go into a warm-up. Also, before the warm-up, I'll have them stretch, get some water, go to the bathroom, because there might be a little bit of nerves before the actual test if they have kind of an idea of what they're about to go through. So for our warm-up, we start going, say, like 3 miles an hour for 30 seconds, and then we ramp up every 30 seconds, 1 mile an hour. During this test, or during that warm-up, that's when I'm looking at their heart rate, their run form, because once we get to like 7 to 9 miles an hour, they're going to be pretty comfortable at that pace, or they're going to be slamming the treadmill, out of breath, and then I know, okay, that's going to be a pretty intense minute. So during that warm-up, that's when I'm figuring out where we start and then where we're going to try to finish. So that's all dependent on the athlete. Some athletes will get to that 9, 10 miles an hour and can sustain that for a whole minute. Others are at the 5, 6 miles an hour range. And that's kind of the cool thing about the test too, is after I see that warm up, I can build their own program per individual. So it's not the same test that we give to everybody. It's all
every athlete has their own protocol essentially.
Yeah. And everybody's going to have their own max, right?
Right.
So some people might start running pretty fast. Some people might start running at someone's max speed, right? And they can start by walking.
And we also can do a bike.
Correct.
A bike test, technically a road test. We haven't done one of those. Usually it's bike or treadmill.
Yeah. So, okay. So now we've got an athlete. They've warmed up. You've kind of explained, hey, this is going to be a hard test. You're going through right now kind of a warm up for you for a calibration or to build a profile. So now what happens? And actually, during the warm up, do you allow the athlete to wear a mask to kind of get comfy? I know I've seen you do that a few times.
I'll give them the option. I'll tell them, hey, this mask during the test itself is going to be pretty restrictive. So I would recommend just trying it out in the warm up, get used to it, figure out how to breathe comfortably with the mask on. And then a lot of people, I think they don't kind of understand the level of kind of uncomfortableness that the mask has. So they're like, nah, it's okay. I'm good.
Yeah. So, I mean, to get an accurate measurement, we have to have the mask tight.
Yeah.
And so there's a few different sizes that we have. And so people have to understand that you're going to be breathing. And when you breathe even harder, you really get those strong exhales. We got to make sure that we contain that air in the system. So the mask is fairly tight.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So they've warmed up. You've started to build the profile. Then you go usually calibrate the machine correct and build a profile. And what are the athletes doing during that time?
During that time, I tell them, hey, now you can just stretch, shake the legs out, get some water.
Say a
Go to
prayer.
the bathroom again. Say a prayer.
Just kidding. It's not that bad.
Do some meditation, breath work. And then I'll also say, just if you want to just keep going on the treadmill at a slower pace, keep your heart rate elevated. Normally takes me maybe like 3 minutes to calibrate everything and get their profile ready. And then I'll tell them, once I get that, we'll put the backpack on, the mask, and then we'll get started.
Okay, so the test, you've already kind of stated, you start at a slow pace and we're building pace every minute interval.
So the warm-up is 3 minutes, right?
Yes, at 3 miles an hour.
So yeah,
that's
easy
something
warm
I
up.
always like to tell people because I'm like, you don't just go out the gate. Like,
yeah, you got to get comfortable.
You get comfortable, you're chilling and getting used to the mask.
And we're watching, we're definitely watching the heart rate at that point in time because you can tell if people are freaking out about the mask, their heart rate starts to build. So it's time for us as a coach or the test conductor, we're saying things like, hey, it's okay. Ease your breath, right? We're going to go for 3 minutes. You got this. And then we're going to start amping up.
Your motivation is huge on this test.
Absolutely. Okay, so 3-minute warm up, nice, easy pace. And then we're going to start increasing the pace. It's every minute.
Every minute we go up. Depending on the athlete, I'd say the range here is every minute will go up 0.4 miles an hour. And I'd say the max would be 0.7.
Right.
That is kind of rare.
Because we're trying to get them basically done with the test in what time frame?
9 minutes.
Yeah, so 3-minute warm up. We'd love to hit your max pace in 9 minutes.
So I guess total test would be about 15.
Okay.
3 minutes warm up, 9 minutes for the test, and then there's a 2.5 minute kind of static recovery where we just focus on.
Yeah, which I think is one of the hardest pieces, really. I don't mind pushing myself, but after pushing myself, being able to relax and recover wearing the mask, that can be a challenge. But like I said,
yeah, you have to not move for 2.5 minutes?
2.5 minutes.
And talk.
Or talk, right.
We get the chatty Cathys, and after the test, are like, how was that? Did I do a good? You're not, no.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So in total, by the time the client walks in to the time that the test is over, it's about 45 minutes.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Pretty harmless. You do have a couple things you want to be fasted or rested. Rested,
not fasted.
Not fasted. That's the RMR that I'm thinking about. Sorry, nutrition brain.
So yeah, like when you test VO2, and by rested, we mean there's nothing, you haven't done anything strenuous within 24 hours.
Correct.
48 would be probably even better if you kind of had a recovery day between your last workout and the test.
Mhm.
But just so you're not like sore.
Yeah, and also sleep, I feel like would be a good thing. If you had a late night, it might be best to reschedule, get some better sleep that night, and then come back the next day.
Yep, hydration always important when we talk about athletic performance as well.
And, if you haven't, or if you had a heavy leg day that week and your legs are going to feel like concrete, probably not the best to do right before a VO2 max test. I mean, you're giving your all on that treadmill.
And then once the test is done, we usually have a report back in
1 to 2 days.
1 to 2 days. All right, 24, 48 hours. And then we can send that out. And the test, the reports are really cool, right? Because the data is just not about VO2. It gives you insights about metabolic efficiency, your ability to burn fat versus carbs, and even like respiratory patterns.
And it does give you a chart too on excellent VO2 versus like a limited VO2.
So yeah, let's actually go into that. I think you pulled up a chart
Mm-hmm.
that kind of so people understand when they get their test what is optimal, what is superior, what is good, what is, oh man, you need to start training a little bit more. And this is going to vary, of course, age ranges and gender.
Yeah, so like a quick rundown. For men, ages 20 to 29, we're looking at 40 to 50.
Now that is good.
That is going to be average ranges.
Okay, this is average.
Average ranges.
So average ranges for these ages and genders.
Yep. Men 20 to 29, 40 to 50, 30 to 39, 34 to 44, 40 to 49 years old, 31 to 41, 50 to 59, 26 to 36, and then 60 plus, 20 to 30. Women, we're looking at 20 to 29, 31 to 41, age 30 to 39, 27 to 37, age 40 to 49, 24 to 34, age 50 to 59, 20 to 30, and then 60 plus years, we're looking at 17 to 27.
So where is that chart from? Is that PNOE itself, or is that, because I'm sure there are different charts, just kind of like heart rate zones,
Yeah.
are you using 5 zones or 6 zones or?
Like I'm looking at my VO2 max that I did last May, and I was, we're not going to get there yet because we're going to play a fun game. But they do give you this chart right here.
Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, you get
So
kind
I
of a
have
line chart. You're superior.
I am.
Yeah, you're in the
I'm
upper level,
elite.
upper echelon.
So I, like when I look at those numbers, it's probably pretty close, yeah, because we're looking at 20 to 29, yeah, 40, 45. Yep. I mean,
For average?
for
Or
average.
do you want excellent? I mean,
I don't like when you look at VO2 max, especially when you talk about longevity, if we want to kind of go back, like if you're in the bottom, let's say you're very poor, or let's say you're in the bottom 10% of your age range and you bump up into the top 25%, your mortality risk goes down by like, it's crazy amount, 5 or 6 times. So I am looking at where my VO2 max is, and because when people think about the test, I don't want you to freak out about the first number you get. We always talk about that when you baseline anything. That's just a snapshot of today where you're at. Now we can build a plan to go wherever. So it's good to know kind of where you fall in that range. I don't think good is where I want to be.
right.
And if I'll celebrate that if an athlete has gone from like a very poor to a good, but I want to get them higher than that. And people can do that. It doesn't matter. It's never too late. We can always work on VO2.
How do you feel about predicting your VO2 using the calculators and things?
Okay, so I mean, there are other ways to get VO2, and I think it's an okay thing to do maybe between tests, right? If you're using the same measurement, it's kind of like a scale that measures body fat or body composition. If you're using it consistently at the same time of day, you can get a trend line. And I think that alternative ways of measuring VO2 serves that. It's a trend line. So if I get my VO2 test measured and I perform a outside test or I have a wearable, I can kind of get a reference point. Okay, here's my real VO2. Here's my reference point on my wearable or a test that I just did.
So can we do me for an example? Because I have 3 different, like I would have that number, what my Garmin says, and then what my last PNOE test, which I need to do my PNOE test again. The times in which you should retest are usually within 3 to 6 months of each other. You don't have to do it that often, but we recommend at least biannually. But
Absolutely.
okay, so if we were to use like the standard, what's the equation?
Oh my gosh. The equation for just calculating via resting heart rate,
Yeah.
I don't even know that one because I feel like that is the most inaccurate one.
Is that
Okay.
not the 220 minus your age?
Well, 220 minus your age gets you your theoretical max heart rate.
To me, that's like crazy high. I'd be like a 198.
Dude, you could get there.
I
Yeah,
just
you
want to
could.
get there.
I tell you
Let's
what,
see.
if you do a max, we used to do, and I mean, we can still do it, a max heart rate test. I used to do this a lot with my runners, but it usually ended up so close to the equation, and it was such a hard test for the runners. I was just like, okay, we won't do it. But if you go out onto a track and you run 800 meters, and the goal was to run 3 or 4 800-meter intervals, and we had a rest interval in between. And I usually tried to make the runners compete against each other because I need them to go hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have them run an 800-meter and then stagger their start depending on how fast they ran the first one, and it's a race. We measure the heart rate during the runs, or we would look at the watch data afterwards or chest strap data afterwards. And after 3 or 4, the max heart rate that you would get on that workout was your max heart rate. And usually it ended up really close to that equation. But what was funny was you would never see it in the last one. You'd always see it in like the second or third because people would end up, once you go all out on a race like that and the rest interval is short enough, you just can't repeat it. So it's a really hard test. But if you want to, Jarod, I would be glad to take you through. I could probably get real close to it in a minute airdyne test or a salt bike test.
Oh gosh,
I want to see this. This needs to go on the gram.
Yeah, I'll do it for the people. For the gram.
The formulas, I was missing this up because you can't get your heart rate, your VO2 max, but you can get your max heart rate. So the 220 minus your age
is max heart rate.
Is max. I would be at 182. I'm 38. 220. That would be 182. And the other formula is 28 minus 0.7 times your age. So that for me would be 182 again. And then, but my max heart rate on the PNOE, which is interesting, is I maxed out at 168 during that test.
Right, but it's looking at a certain crossover. So we could go into the ins and outs of the way the VO2 max is measured on that machine, but I don't think it's important to talk about today. But yes, theoretically, and could we push higher? Maybe that was, that day. Mm-hmm. Maybe you were fatigued. Maybe your hydration
that was when we were training for 3 marathons, which you told me not to test.
But
but I can't help it. I'm curious.
So you do like a weird thing. There's a weird equation from resting heart rate to get VO2. And like you measure your resting heart rate, you calculate your maximum heart rate, which is the 220 minus your age, and then you divide your maximum heart rate by your resting heart rate and multiply the number by 15.3.
Right.
And
it's crazy. And that's how like your watch is creating your VO2 max too. Like they don't know anything but calculations, what you're entering, what,
Right. And I mean, you could have messed up heart rate data because your watch is sitting at your wrist, and when you're running, your wrist is flexing and it's using a LED light basically to go in and measure blood volume as it pumps through your veins. So again, chest strap is the best. There's other tests that you can do that predict. I mean, go out and run a really hard mile. If your mile time trial is going down, usually your VO2 is improving. But you have the Cooper 12-minute run test. And I think if you look at studies, is probably one of the closest predictors to an actual VO2 test. And basically what you do is you go onto a track, because I want something that's flat and that you definitely know the distance. And you're going to basically go for 12 minutes as far as you can. And it's okay if you have to walk, but know to get a accurate number, we really want you to push for 12 minutes. Like, how far can you go in 12 minutes? And then you take either your miles or kilometers. So if it's miles, you multiply by like 36, so it's like 35.97. And if you have it in kilometers, you take your kilometers and you multiply that by like 22 and a half. Okay.
My head is doing that like Zach Galifianakis thing where he's like doing
Oh, yeah.
Rain Man
The
numbers.
gears
Yeah.
are like turning.
Off of the hangover.
The square root of what?
So yeah, so when you do that, you can get a prediction. Okay, so that's a good way to do it. And so what I would do is, and maybe what we can do is do like a 12-minute test. Can look at our wearable. We can do an actual test, and then we can track that like maybe 6 months later. We can see who does the biggest delta in VO2.
What's on?
I'm on. I'm in.
Because what do you guys think? I mean, what would you predict your VO2? I think, Isis, you had a fun challenge for us. And so
Yeah,
our
I
listeners
thought-
can kind of have some fun of us torching ourselves maybe or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
thought we could put like a wager on like a, I don't know, over, under, closest to you.
So what kind of wager are we talking here?
So, or like payoff, like what they would have to do if you lost or
Yeah.
what? Right?
And
Is that the wager?
Yeah, like let's do it and we can pick one.
Okay, so here's a couple options that I was thinking about. One is post-workout smoothie. So whoever I guess is wrong or has the lowest or is not closest to has to buy smoothies or recovery drinks or
For the
whatever.
other two?
For the other two.
So there's one loser. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they can, are they going to make them themselves or?
Jared has a blender at the gym.
So I can
don't
make
you?
a really good smoothie.
He's done it. So yeah. Another option would be costume. So the loser has to wear a funny costume, like superhero or mascot or something during group workout, or maybe the whole day at the gym.
VO2 man or woman.
I love that.
Mm.
Yeah.
VO2 Maximus.
Y'all saw me at Night Living Deadlift. I'm good with the costume.
I think we need to do the little TikTok trend too right now, and we can be like, I am Maximus Aurelius, and whoever loses is like, I'm Jeff.
I'm Jeff. The third I thought was coffee runs, of course.
We do like coffee.
Love coffee. Oh, this one's good. Like a social media spotlight where the loser has to do a challenge or something on Instagram live, maybe like doing something in slow motion or
Oh, like something
making
silly.
a funny fitness theme.
Or we can make
video.
them do the 1-minute assault bike test.
And just record it
Yeah.
and then watch. Yeah.
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 Watch the
And then
comments
like
likes
maybe
come
we
in.
can do the last 5 seconds in slow-mo,
Yeah.
when they're,
Oh.
when you're in that pain cave
Yeah.
and you just, and maybe, or the recovery.
Yeah.
We definitely have to get the after
You're
of
laying
a
on the
1-minute
floor.
all-out assault bike. If you guys haven't done that before, I do encourage it. It's a great test. In fact, I may have our athletes at enduraLAB do kind of a 1-minute test very soon. Beginning of the year, it's always a good time to test.
I can't whistle.
All right, so what do you want to do, Jared? Which one is more appealing? Because depends on how accurate you think your prediction of your VO2 is.
I'm gonna say the most difficult one is the assault bike. So I feel like that is gonna be the best motivator.
To guess right?
I mean, yeah. But then
Effort over financial burden. Which
Yeah.
one is?
to go with effort.
I go with effort too.
Okay, so I
Kinda
just think it's
that.
like an Instagram all-out test.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so
Okay.
we're going to predict our own VO2 right here on this podcast so
Yeah.
everyone can hear it. And then when we measure it over sometime in the next month, right, we will come back on, report at the beginning, and then we'll say, this is the loser. Here are the predictions. Here's what we actually got, so forth. So we're going to go for closest to. I don't care if you over or under predict. It's just closest to. So whoever is the
Okay,
furthest
that makes
away
sense.
from their actual number
Is the loser.
is the loser.
Whew,
So
okay.
you can't sandbag it unless you can think you can actually sandbag a VO2 to get that number, which you just can't. All right, so go youngest to oldest, Jarod.
I'm gonna give myself a nice 39.
Oh my gosh, you just heard the loser right there.
Just lost.
Yeah, you just lost.
All right.
Should have been higher.
Because wait till you hear my prediction. Go ahead, Isis.
Oh no.
Wait, you're doing your own, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Did you
Jarod-
predict mine at 39? Ouch.
No, but
Okay.
okay. Okay.
Where you Isis is like making calculations, looking online, looking at previous tests.
Well, I've done the test within, I guess this would be 6 months. So I feel like I know pretty good where mine is.
So
I
it's
would
funny
like-
that she's the one that came up with this idea.
She's
Go ahead.
the most, recently done
It's gonna
it.
be fun.
I did it last week. I think I'm probably around. Oh wait, let me look at my test.
Okay, but the good question for me would be like, do you think that I've improved or not? Because should I just say my VO2 score?
In 6 months.
Yeah.
You did it. Oh, you did it before?
I did it before
Oh, yeah.
our
You've
marathon.
improved, although you've kind of slacked
I've
lately.
slacked on my training.
Well,
My VO2, yeah. I've slacked on my training. I got a 41 in May.
I mean, really
Yeah.
good
Woo,
job, Isis.
41.
I mean, 41 go.
Hey.
Could I have been like fatigued at the time? So could my VO2 be higher? Or could I have slacked a little bit on my running and my training since then, but I've increased my strength training? There's so many variables. I guess I would think that I would be lower. So I'm going to go. No, you know what?
I mean, are
This
you going
makes
to
me nervous.
I
Like,
just pick a
sweating.
number?
I'm
I mean,
sweating.
yeah.
Um,
Jared's the one that said he was stressed.
when are we testing? I get time to train.
In the next month. I mean, the holidays are crazy. We're traveling. Things at the gym are nuts. So it's
Okay,
just
I'm
like,
gonna say 40.
So my 39 isn't like crazy off.
Jared, you're
I
like
think-
40 years
marathons.
younger than
You
me.
did 3
Yeah.
marathons though, and like
you're literally half my age. And
Did
I'm
you
going to.
listen to the age ranges?
it was a lot of numbers.
The numbers, to be fair.
You know, I think I'm going to go high. You guys are going low. I'm going to put myself at 50.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think I'm there.
Okay.
You know, I have slack since the mountain, or I guess
So-
since trail.
Average ranges, Jared, men 20 to 29, 40 to 50.
So he's below
Oh.
average.
You're like poor. And
I mean, I
if
don't
you
even.
are- if you are 39, you're fired.
I mean, I could.
Yeah.
I felt pretty safe going with 60,
So
but you know, since
Lee-
you picked 39,
yeah,
I'm like,
yours is 30 to 40 average.
I'm going to be superior.
Yeah,
though.
I think you'll be superior.
I'm going to be over 48.
And for me, 27 to 37 is average. So I'm giving myself a 40.
I really want to work on your guys' self-esteem
Yeah.
in
Apparently.
the next 6 months after the VO2
We're all
testing.
human.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
now
fun.
that you guys have just lowballed yourselves in VO2, why don't we talk about how we would improve our VO2?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So number one, VO2 work is about consistency. So that's kind of why we just mentioned, hey, you know, we were really consistent leading up to this big event that we just did in October. Since October, we have been slacking. That does not help our VO2. But when we look at people improving VO2, one of the biggest areas that we always say is zone 2. So if you think about a pyramid, or I always use an iceberg, VO2 work is building the base. So the wider and bigger the base, the taller your iceberg can be. And the peak is going to be speed. When we do zone 2 work, we're working a lot on the aerobic system, and we are actually pushing your speed up from the bottom. We use a math test a lot to test, you know, kind of what is your,
AF.
Yeah,
Okay.
math, like philmathatone. Yeah.
He doesn't say math with a list.
No,
or
yeah.
whatever.
I love math.
I love math.
So we're looking at pushing that speed up from the bottom. And so like on a math test, you're running at your max aerobic heart rate, which is about 80% of your max heart rate. And what we'll find is that we can increase the velocity or speed at that heart rate. So you get more efficient. That's something to talk about too. VO2. VO2 is not related to speed. So a person with a lower VO2 can actually run faster than a person with a high VO2. We call that VVO2, your velocity at your VO2 max. So there are some things, it is not direct correlation to speed. So number one, zone 2, we're doing that as much as we can. I'd love to see, 3 hours, probably a week. But if you're new to it, even 1 hour at zone 2 is great. And for a lot of people who are unfit or deconditioned, that can be a walk. You're just outside of it on the walk at a rucksack. So that's the base. Okay. And then once we get out of that, look at intervals. All right. So that lovely term, high intensity interval training. I don't even call it that. I just call it intervals because we have a few that we really love. And when we look at VO2, we have a few that we know are very effective. All right. So if anyone has ever run with enduraLAB, they have experienced 30-30s. And that was developed by Biot, which my kids would confuse with a Giat, right? I could see Isis already laughing. But the Biot 30-30s.
If it's really called Biat or
Yeah.
Biat.
It's French. Okay. Oui. So we do 30-30s. We do it a little bit differently. We use a 1 mile time trial, and then we go through this progression of 30-30s. It takes about 11 weeks. And then we retest. And it is the most successful interval protocol I've ever used in my life.
And you can really see it working because in the beginning, you're catching your breath in that 30-second rest period. And then by the middle, or maybe even sooner, you'll start realizing you can catch your breath a lot quicker. The runs are easier because you're covering the same distance each time, theoretically. It's a lot easier for you during that 12 weeks.
Yeah, so basically, you run a 1 mile time trial, and that's going to set your pace for a 30-second interval. So you run 30 seconds at that 1 mile time trial pace. And then in the 30 seconds of recovery, it's active recovery. You're running at half of that speed. So to put it simply, this is probably not a real number, but a 10-minute 1 mile time trial. So you're going to run 30 seconds at a 10-minute pace. And then your recovery is going to be at a 20-minute pace for 30 seconds. And we start with like 3 blocks of 8 minutes. And we grow that up to 1 block of 45 minutes. It is not easy, but it is fruitful. In fact, I don't know if we've ever had anyone go through the entire progression and not PR.
Right.
So if you look at an interval protocol that has 100% efficacy, let's go. Outside of that, you're going to go into the traditional kind of VO2, and that is, usually in that 4 to 6 minute interval mark for 4 to 5 cycles. I like a 5x5 minute. And there's even ways that you can play in the 5x5. So you can actually have a hard start and then come into like what we would call like a threshold pace, or kind of that 1 mile time trial-ish pace for the rest of the remaining time. Then you rest, rinse, and repeat. And then outside of that, you can start going into longer intervals. I probably wouldn't do anything over like a 12-minute interval, but I love an 8-minute interval. A lot of people, that's getting, close to being able to run a mile or so like mile repeats, but a 4x8 minute interval protocol is awesome.
Oh my gosh, I just got trauma from our 5K repeats that we used to do.
Oh, we definitely do that for like our half marathon.
Yeah.
It is a way to tune in. Hey, can I actually run the race at this speed?
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it in
Unrelated,
5,000 meter chunks.
Just PTSD.
So we've got zone 2, then we've got intervals, right? Now, for intervals, you might be able to do those twice a week. And if I did, I would have the shorter interval and a longer interval. Doing 2 short intervals, I mean, that can really beat you up if you're not really good at recovering your sleep games. I mean, you need sleep, nutrition, and a whole recovery protocol to really do that effectively. Otherwise, you're going to burn out or there is a risk for injury. And going into risk for injury, something that a lot of especially endurance athletes don't think about when improving VO2 max, actually improving muscle quality. So
I mean, it's
strength
why we
training.
exist. We
Right.
literally exist to strengthen runners in the
Yeah.
beginning. Now we've evolved, but
Yeah, that's why enduraLAB, I mean, that's why we named it that,
Yep.
right? If you can build in strength training muscle efficiency, and we know how to do that very well, the more efficient your muscles are, the less oxygen they require. So if you have the same VO2 max and you make your muscles more efficient, you actually get faster. You get more efficient overall. So super important to actually be strength training. It actually helps with VO2, actually helps with just overall performance, and it helps with injury prevention, which brings me full circle back to consistency. If I'm getting hurt doing these intervals, it doesn't really matter because if I knock myself out for 6 weeks with an injury, then, my VO2 is dropping again. So all of those are very important. Consistency, lot of base building, that's your majority. Few intervals sprinkled in, really truthfully once a week is great. And then strength training to make sure that you're being efficient and minimizing any type of injury.
right. And along with that, I would add recovery and nutrition. Nutrition specifically fueling the muscles to support that recovery with protein, and then carbs to fuel those intense workouts. So don't forget about nutrition as well.
And also, hydration is huge because if you're dehydrated, then it kind of minimizes your body's ability to deliver oxygen to your muscles, which will then affect your test.
Absolutely. And you can not eat and perform okay within like 24 hours, right? We're not talking about extended fasting or something. But if you are dehydrated, it is the first that I will see in an athlete when it comes to lack of performance or a performance decline. It's the first thing that I ask. How's your hydration? Right? Super important. When we look at, you can survive a long time without food, but you cannot survive without water. For a while there, they tried that dry fasting.
Oh my gosh, give me a break.
These stupid things that people do, dry fasting. All right. So for our listeners, what's, one simple step that you guys would take away from this conversation that they can start doing to improve their VO2 max?
Yeah, I mean, first off, of course, is getting the baseline, taking that test and really understanding where you are at now so that you can improve.
Absolutely, because you have to know where you're going to start. And right now, we're about ready to get into resolution season, right? Which we'll talk about later as far as resolutions versus goals and processes and so on and so forth. But it's a great time to get baselines, right? When we're just doing a bunch of stuff and we don't really know, I mean, there's other predictors of how fit we're getting, but without a baseline, it's hard to really measure, oh, I feel fitter than I was in January. Well, really? Like, how fitter are you, right? It's always nice to know. And it's funny, I have one client who I'm going to call out right now, and he knows who I'm talking about. He has refused to do a VO2. We've done so much improvement. It would have been awesome to gotten one way back in the day. A tracker of a lot of health metrics, but he does not want to do the VO2. And it can get into kind of like the claustrophobia of wearing the mask. But this is a call out. You know who you are. Schedule your VO2.
Schedule your test.
Let's do it.
All right, Jared, how about you?
I would say just get more comfortable doing some type of aerobic exercise, whether that be walking, rucking, light jog. Just get comfortable with your heart rate up. And then once you're kind of more comfortable there, go for that baseline because I know the test can be intimidating. So just try to get yourself more comfortable running, walking, getting your heart rate up. And yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
fine.
I love that. I mean, start slow. And again, building your zone 2 is not hard. In fact, it's just a time thing, right? Usually a lot of my athletes will just talk about time. And so even though I'm asking for, up to 3 hours of zone 2, if you can give it to me, you don't have to do that in one chunk. Obviously, the more you spread it through the week, actually, the more I like it, because what that tells us is that you're consistently building that into your day, which at the end is going to pay off, long term. So I love that. Zone 2 work, get it in. My thing is don't overdo it. And going back on high intensity, if you're going to do intervals, do them right. Because the last thing that we, in this time crunch world that we all live in, right? The last thing you want to do is waste your time. And that comes into finding a coach who really knows how to work, how the body works, how you're performing, can have conversations with you, right? I don't need just a cheerleader cheering me on and me trying to get splat points. I need an actual coach, okay? And that's what we provide at enduraLAB, and that's what we love to do, right? So that kind of wraps up today's VO₂ max discussion. We hope you guys have learned something new and feel inspired to, number one, baseline and start improving your cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not just about performance. It's about building healthier, stronger you for the long term.
Yeah, and if you're curious about the VO₂, just come to the gym, ask your questions, and then even better, register, sign up for the test, and get that booked, and we'll get through it.
Absolutely. Jarod is here for any testing needs, right?
Yes.
So thanks you guys for tuning. As always, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode and leave a review. Until next time, stay strong, keep moving, and we'll see you at the lab.
Peace.
Bye.